On the third one.
I was good.
One, two,
Kurt was
three,
like
that. 1, 2, 3, like that.
I was good.
Okay.
Mine was
1, 2, 3.
Do it again.
1, 2, 3. Close. All right.
Mine was good.
Yeah, yours was the best.
Yes. Better than yours.
Yeah, better than mine. You're always better than me. Okay, Kurt, bring us home.
All right.
Bring us in.
Welcome
Bring us in.
to the
Drive us home.
IdiotCast.
Get us in the car.
Today is the second and final installment of our discussion of The Martian by Andy Weir.
All right, so we both finished, or all three of us finished the book. So
Hooray!
All three of who?
All three of us.
Who?
Stop it!
We all finished the book.
Introductions, you bum.
It was an interesting
No, you
journey.
gotta introduce.
Oh,
Yeah. Hi. Introduce yourselves,
I
gentlemen.
gave you the
So
segue. I said all three of who?
I'm Keith Miller.
Whom?
And joining me today is Kurt
Hey.
and Mike.
Hello.
Okay. So we had on the last time we finished. We were I forget even like where we were, but I feel like he was still trapped on Mars, for sure. And
It sounds familiar.
I think like things were going with NASA, and he like knew what was going on, and like
Oh,
things were, like, on a better path.
Didn't like the airlock just blow off or something?
I thought that was the beginning of 14.
Yeah. That started off.
Right. I mean, I
So-
think that's what started 14 off, which is where we stopped. We stopped at 13, and we were supposed to start at the beginning of 14. And then we didn't the airlock blew off, and that's when everything like went crazy.
Okay. Do you want to start talking about, some of his emotional and technical struggles with the airlock?
Yeah, sure.
It
Alright.
had just blown off, and then 14 starts with him in it.
Okay.
So
through wear and tear of him using this, which was intended to be a 20-day-old airlock, he'd be using it for a couple hundred days. General wear and tear of this material just caused rapid decompression and blew this thing off like a water rocket. That's how I imagined it anyway. It's kind of shot off, and then he was pretty far away, and now he's stuck in a leaky tube.
kind of tumbled around, and then he kind of woke up inside and was really upset.
Yeah, I liked how they sort of they changed the way that the story was being told. A couple times they did this where it was him talking with his audio logs or them back at Earth, and then they switched to this sort of it's almost like the omniscient presence. It's like
narrative,
this is a
yeah.
thing that happened that you we're going to explain it to you, but just because nobody, it's almost like, again, I kept thinking of it's the forensics team talking about what happened and why it happened. They were very clinical about it.
Yeah, I mean, like with the first half, they were still very technical and detailed. The amount of detail that they put into it allowed me to not only picture, kind of what was going on, but actually understand on a scientific level of the thought processes that each one of these solutions had to go through.
Mm-hmm.
Which really engaged me. I mean, engaged my my thought process, or engage my imagination, engage my scientific mind to really, kind of think along with them, to try to figure it out while they are. And every once in a while I would come across, the solution just as they were leading up to it, which I thought was a lot of fun. Kind of like watching reading a mystery novel, or watching like a suspenseful TV show where you can kind of figure out from the clues given.
Yeah, and he
Yeah,
did a
it's a
good
couple
job of
times.
making you feel smart enough to know what's going on, whether you are or not. He explained things enough to keep you on for the ride, which is pretty good. There was one thing I noticed. It was a little bit later, but it doesn't really matter when we talk about it. But I realized that whenever he had those interactions with JPL or whoever it was, that he's talking to back on Earth with NASA,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
He's putting those, unless it's in the narrative sections, the chapters that are clearly written in third person back on Earth,
Mm-hmm.
he's putting those, when it's in his log entry, he literally is putting those JPL NASA logs into his log. Like, he's copying and pasting, which is weird, because there's one chapter where he's like, I'll let Venkat explain it. And then he pastes in the log of where they talked.
Right.
And I was
right.
like, wait a minute, he's actually like formatting these things, and it made me think that he actually has been very thoughtful as to how he's like constructed these, which is one of the things we talked about last time as to whether he is really just kind of spewing out random thoughts or whether he's really constructing this as the character, him, not the author. But
Yeah, and you wonder if it has to do with, like, again, the amount of time that he has had on this planet, or like it's in the interludes, like when he's working really hard, he's not able to devote as much time to that. But then as he's got these like fourth days off or whatever the other things that he's doing, he can devote more time to that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was just kind of neat that he's doing that so purposely. And I don't know if it'd be interesting to read it a second time to see if he grows as a journaler,
Yeah.
Like, who knows if he'd ever done this before. To begin the novel, he's like kind of emotional at the very beginning, saying
Yeah.
like he's going to die and stuff. But then my memory tells me he hasn't changed at all. Like, his writing style is the same. But that'd be kind of cool if it wasn't.
He as a character didn't seem to progress as much. I mean, which I didn't mind. I mean, he had a journey to go on, so like, and he, I think, grew a little bit more comfortable with his ability to like jury rig things and like feel like MacGyver, like doing everything. But he didn't. His attitude, he had to be a very upbeat character, right? I mean, this person had to be. It's sort of like I'm going to forget the name of the movie now, but there's a movie where this guy like ends up like, I think, going to a concentration camp. It's like A Beautiful Life or something like that. And it's like he goes with his son and he's just upbeat the entire time to like try and protect his son. And they make it through.
I think I know what movie you're talking about.
Yeah,
I don't remember the title of it
it's like
either.
Beautiful Life or something like that. We'll have to double check it, but he has this constant upbeat nature. Now, a couple times he's like, "Oh man, that sucks," or like, "Great, I'm like done again." Like it's going downhill. But in order to survive for this long, you really have to be, Mr. Upbeat and Mr. like still making the jokes, like saying some weird things to NASA that you wouldn't expect somebody to say, but like he also just doesn't care, like at that time.
Yeah, he's so consistent. I mean, he's definitely a flat character. Like, he doesn't change at all, and it's one of those things that like I don't know, like he's not the thing that changes throughout the story. I don't know what does, like, what really changes. It's just survival, right?
I didn't think
it's man versus nature, right? I mean,
I didn't think his personality
conquers.
dynamics really was as much of a central focus as was his surroundings. Mars itself seems as much of a character as he is, if not more, because it's throwing all these things at him. I mean, he's just the solution to all the equations, and there's all these other variables around him that kind of seem to be the more interesting part. Whereas he's static, as you said, he's always the same, but the surroundings are always changing. So I guess they're just trying to say, oh, let's see if we take this square and put it in a round hole. Let's see if we take this square and put it in a oval hole. And they just taking the same type of person, same type of individual, and just throw him around and just see how he's going to react to these various things, but keeping him the same person, the same individual, without any drastic changes. If that makes sense.
And I don't know that it would be a better book if he changed a bunch. He does seem a little bit like a machine, I mean, he has personality and stuff, but it's still so one note, except for the few moments of frustration and anger and then like jubilation later. But he definitely, because he doesn't change, it seems like NASA just makes robots. I mean, he obviously has personality, but like,
right.
So he's infallible though. Like, nothing really made him doubt himself for more than one soul or whatever, right?
Yeah, that's true. It did seem
so
a bit
maybe it's
unrealistic.
It's a commentary on NASA, maybe, and their ability to train astronauts and select.
Or maybe he just filtered all that stuff out of his logs.
Yeah, but
that's true. There's just no inkling to that, though.
Even when they talked about, look, I mean, I think the author is writing this as this was an interesting story dealing with like a lot of the science that went behind this and like survival. And he, I think, tried to develop some of the other characters. It's hard because like the character is Mars, right? I mean, Mars is a big character, and Watney or Waitney or whatever his name is, Watney. He's a character, and he does have like that personality, but it's really this sort of, it's like, it's him like trying to survive, like get through this. Like, so even the other characters where they develop, like there's that little bit of that love triangle, not triangle, but like I guess that like love interest between the two other astronauts, and then like the personality of Martinez and like a couple other people Johansson. They tried to put that personality in there, but I'm glad that he did. I just don't think he even needed to, because that's not really the story.
I had a hard time telling the other astronauts apart, other than their names.
You're right, Keith, that I think, and Kurt, I think this is because of that maybe, is that it does seem like sort of an afterthought that like, oh man, I should probably round out these other people and make them seem real. But some of that stuff maybe was a slight bit forced, like that the one is going to sleep with the other one, or nope, he just made a joke instant message before he got back to the ship, like, I get it, they're goofballs and they all live together for hundreds of days in a spaceship. I don't know, but it was a little in my face. Not so much that like I was upset reading it, but I agree that it was a little forced in the short time that they had with them,
Right.
But I don't know.
All right. Do you want to talk about some of these particular bullet points, or we're going to keep going on plot?
Well, I mean, we kind of are covering the struggle back home all throughout it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But Kurt, what was your next thought?
Well, as far as the struggle back home, if we're going to get to the climax, obviously there's more than one thing going on at once. There is Mark Watney's struggle to first get to the MAV, the Mars Ascension Vehicle, and his struggle to strip this thing down bare. On top of that, there's a struggle of the crew on their way back to Mars to make sure that they get there in a timely fashion, that they're in an accurate trajectory, so that they're in like within meters of where Watney's gonna be. And then you have more of an emotional and less interactive struggle with the people back on Earth, because they have no say whatsoever in what goes on. Because even if they try to make any kind of suggestion or try to help any way, by the time the message gets to them, it's going to be far too late to be any good. So and those three things happening at the same time, it was very exciting to me, because it showed more of like three different things. One was like an emotional struggle on Earth, an intellectual struggle on the shuttle, and a physical struggle on Mars. So kind of put all those things together and made, I thought it represented all three of those aspects.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that during, or right after Mark gets back to, or not back, but arrives at the MAV for the fourth flight or whatever it was for, after that point, they don't go back to Earth to show the excitement and the celebration. Like the novel did not return to Earth for a while after that. And I thought that was an interesting choice to not, like we've seen Earth struggle and be nervous, and the reporters and Venkat and all those people like all trying to figure out what the solution will be. But then they don't return to them to celebrate when he gets there. And he beat the storm, which we didn't talk about, by like turning south around the crater or whatever it was. He was smart enough to set up. I thought that was a cool moment where he set up the three different, solar panels
suits,
and measured like which one had the most, and he realized where the epicenter of the storm was. And
again,
I thought that was real cool.
He's pretty amazing, right? I mean, it's like if anybody was going to get trapped, again, it's a story, but like if anybody's going to get trapped on this planet, the guy who's the botanist and the engineer, like he's able to do it. And even like even he seems like he's an inventive guy. Even towards the end, when they're like, "We don't know how we're going to get you back onto the main ship," he's like, "I'll just punch a hole in my my finger of my gloves, and I'll be Iron Man, and I'll fly towards you.
Oh yeah.
Like I
was
like
funny.
that, and they were like, "Why? How do you even think of these things?" So he's definitely the, he's the inventive kind of like thinking outside the box kind of guy.
And that idea led to the thing they actually did with the ship.
Right.
Yeah, when they blew the hole inside. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I thought he was being a little silly with the Iron Man references there.
He was.
But that's
Look,
okay.
after
I know that's
again,
what he does. I know
like
that's what he
his
does.
reference was very sparse, and it was enjoyable, and he didn't go too crazy. Like talking about the '70s shows and the disco was funny, but it wasn't too in depth. It wasn't like it was hitting you over the head with the references.
Yeah.
And
Let me ask you this though: would it be a better book with them or without them? All the references.
It certainly wasn't as bad as the last book as far
I
as
agree,
references go.
If I could take them all out, I think I probably still would. You're right that it
Oh,
didn't
yeah,
ruin
yeah.
anything.
I
think I'd
it-
rather just not have them.
I think the only. Yeah, I think it was just a way to inject maybe some humor into a situation that was dry. Like as the writer, he's like, look, we're talking about all these like very complicated science things that we're talking about, taking your own feces and turning it into soil and
Fertilizer.
Yeah,
that
that's
stuff's
dry,
Well, it was dry, and then he added water to it. So I think that is why he was like, all right, I gotta put something in here. And so like, what does he do on his downtime? It's an interesting concept, and I never thought of it, but I'm sure like it is. You are allowed to bring certain things with you, and so like, what is it that people bring? I would love it, and I don't know this, but I would love it if he actually researched it and found out that people do bring like obscure things like that. Like there was an astronaut who brought disco music because that's all they wanted to do was listen to disco music.
I think in some ways for us, or at least for me, but also for us as a group, and you already said it, Kurt, but I think he's paying for Ernest Cline's sins a little bit.
Yeah.
Like had we not read that, I wouldn't have been primed to hate nostalgic references, But now I am. And then the only other thing to mention, I thought, which maybe added to my tiring of the references, was the fact that the way they were included was really predictable after a few times. They were always at the end of his log, and they were always about like the TV he was watching and the music, or the books, right? A few times, but like they were always an aside right at the end. They might have shown up a few other times in different places, but like 90% of the time that's where they were. And I wondered, is there a fictional justification for them showing up at the end like that? Like, is he and I'm probably looking too far into this, but like in his head, is he finishing his journal and thinking about, now I'm going to go watch this TV show?
That's how I felt.
Like,
I felt like every time I read the log, it was he did his work for the day, he sat down to write his log, and then he was going to like watch some TV and go to bed.
So that's what's on his mind.
Yeah, so he's like, all right, like I'm going to go, now it's time for me to like watch Three's Company. I wonder what's going to happen with, or they just changed this character. And I think that's what it, again, like I felt comfortable with it because I was like, yeah, he's decompressing at the end of the day. He did his work, which was to do the log, which is what he's supposed to do. And then he's going to go and like kill some time. Yeah. And he's going to tell us about it. Why he would put it in the log is not necessarily like you said. It's probably we could have done without it, but it adds
fan servicey,
right? It's fan servicey,
play in your audience,
and it adds to it's the character. He's able to tell the story inside the logs and not pull out to the omniscient character or narrator too much. It's that he's adding it in there.
Yeah,
maybe he's writing it down so he has a checklist and a log of like which episode he left off on. I don't know. Maybe he, so he can look at the previous one and be like, oh,
he's got file names, man. He can just choose the next one.
He's got bookmarks.
It's possible.
It's fancy.
I wonder how he digitized all those. Do you think they're all like iTunes downloads, or do you think he's ripping DVDs, or is he like
well, they had all thumb drives.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but so where did he get all the files from?
Well, no, they
from his crew.
Well, it was the different crew members had whatever they had.
Well, right, but how'd they get them? Like what
Amazon,
file sharing service
Amazon
has this stuff?
Prime.
They were all Amazon Prime members.
And you can
now
download those?
Yeah, it's slightly in the future, so you could download all those things.
All right.
I would imagine that if you wanted to, you'd probably get rights to some of that stuff to take on a NASA trip.
I'm pretty sure NASA would pay the licensing fee for that.
I wonder, is there even one? I mean, you're just taking a copy. It's not like you're broadcasting. It's not like you buy a copy.
Yeah,
that's all, right.
That's true. You're not broadcasting it.
So. We all stop. I want
to ruin the thing.
That was great.
That's fine.
Yeah. I was gonna ask if we wanted to talk about his dietary concerns.
Well, since he was getting sick of all those TV shows and music and disco, he was also getting sick of potatoes.
Yeah. Excellent. Let's talk about those potatoes.
There's poopy potatoes.
I was pleasantly surprised because I did not think of the idea of cooking the potatoes. And that sounds so dumb, but I like that the forethought was cooking the potatoes because you get more caloric intake. What's that?
Before he left, you mean he cooked them all and then brought them with him?
Yeah, he cooked them all and then threw them back outside, and they freeze dried. But they were they were cooked, they were easier.
The proteins were broken.
Yeah,
down.
it was great. That was smart, and I like that. And it was also interesting just to think of how boring and how much control you must have to eat potatoes and say you have these 5 really good meals, but you're gonna wait until certain moments to eat them, which is great willpower, and I love it.
And he named them.
What's that?
And he named them. He was like, "This is for when I survive."
Francis is my favorite meal.
Something terrible.
Right. So we're surviving something that I shouldn't have survived. So yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I like that.
Let's see. So I mean, potatoes. That was definitely very clever. What else? I know he had those other freeze packaged meals. I don't think he had any other crazy things that he got sick of. But what else? I mean, did we run into? Let's see. We already kind of talked about some emotional stuff, some physical. Let's see. Oh, here's a note that I put down, which I thought was kind of cool. Between the old technology that he pulled from. What? Stop it!
The old technology. I'm listening.
He pulled from the old rover. The
Pathfinder or the Overture. What was it called?
The Overture. Anyway,
he had the Pathfinder. The Pathfinder was the one that he got the radio from.
What was the other one then?
But I like the contrast of using older technology to help him in a new journey. I thought that was a neat, way to put those two things together.
Yeah, it also I think, and there's some truism to it with the fact that some of these things are just still going, right? They set out these satellites and they things that were put in the 50s and just now, traveling on past whatever, and it's so we're amazed it's still working. Yeah. It's kind of amazing to think about because he did really try to do as many scientific realities as possible. Mm-hmm. I don't know if the ion engine it exists, but maybe it does.
It
does.
Definitely a thing that we don't use them because we're not going that far.
They've tested them for small satellites, but it's not something that's used for any large
big
craft.
Manned ship. Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with the math. It works. The other thing is that as far as technology goes, the oldest of the technologies was him spelling things out in Morse code with rocks, which I thought was awesome. I know he had done that, I think, earlier, but I was thinking while he was on his trip, while he was headed towards the MAV, the new one, he was spelling out those different things as he went, and it reminded me of Charlotte's Web and how they had to wait for
that some pig,
some pig, right?
Some pig.
For something about it, the way that the sentence structure was very condensed because of the way he had to write it with rocks and the fact that they had to wait so long. So that made me smile.
Kind of neat. I wondered though, and I guess I don't understand Morse code that well. I thought Morse code was more of letters. So the fact that Morse code would be shorter hand than spelling out the words.
Maybe it wasn't Morse. Maybe it was something else. I don't remember.
They said it was Morse. They said it was Morse. And
it was Morse code. I guess I don't know enough about it. I've always seen Morse code as in letters, and I've seen them before, 3
there is
dots
some
and 3
punctuation.
dashes. But no, I know. But I'm saying, like, is that easier to write in Morse code than it is? I guess it is. Yeah, than
Probably
letters
because
it's
rocks
less
for a dash,
rocks.
one rock for a
Right.
dot.
Okay.
Right?
Never mind.
So
I
it's
was thinking
1,
like
2, 1, 1, 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That does make perfect sense. At first I was just
It'd be
thinking
long.
Right, but you would
but-
need a ton of rocks to like make an S,
A single
an
S
O,
would
an
take
N,
8
yeah, like all that
rocks or
stuff.
something.
Yeah.
Okay,
To be able to make a comprehensible shape.
Yeah.
All right. Mike, you had a cool reference to like one of the last quotes of the book.
So the thing I wanted to talk about, what's the message? What's the theme of the novel? Not that it needs to have one, but there's a moment near the end that if the intention was to spell out a theme, I didn't love the way it was done. If it's not, then it's fine. So the sentence I'm thinking of was one of the last pages, I think.
It's like the last sentence, isn't it? I thought it was
Is
like
it
the
that
last
far?
thing.
It's something like that, and it says he's home or whatever, and he's talking about how thankful he is. It's definitely in the last paragraph or two or something, but maybe even the last sentence. And he says, "But really, they did it," and they being like NASA and the
Humanity, almost like everybody being behind
right?
them. Yeah.
Everyone who helped. He says, "But really, they did it because every human being has a basic instinct to help each other out. It might not seem that way sometimes, but it's true." So it's like you kind of think back, and obviously he helps himself a lot, but everyone else is helping him. You know, like there's, I don't know how many times, there's like that one time in the beginning where they didn't want to, or not in the beginning, where there were the one time where they don't want to do the plan to send the other astronauts back because it was too dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
But then they end up
Yeah.
it gets kind of like that
They
weird
get
email
forced.
gets sent to them.
Yeah,
And they
their
get
hands
forced to do
were
it.
forced to go along with the plan.
But otherwise, I think along the way, everyone's always trying to help him.
Yeah. Oh, like
Mhm.
the fact that the Chinese scientists were, but like I don't know. They also mentioned like they knew that they would have to get people on board. It wasn't like everybody was just going to go for it, but it was like the scientific community was behind it, and humanity as a person, like governments maybe not, but like the people were, and like scientists were.
Well, and Weir is very careful throughout the novel to justify everyone's motivations outside of just this like genuine altruistic need to help others.
Right.
Which is I like better than this sentiment because it seems a little more real to me. Like it, you know, they argue that one of the reasons they're getting all this funding into NASA right then is because the media is on top of it. So
Right.
they need to turn it the right way. The reason China does what it does is because they're going to pay them back through letting a Chinese astronaut or whatever, you know,
On the
whatever
next
they call
mission.
them, and go up to Mars.
Right.
So it's like it's always a you scratch my back, I'll scratch
did
yours
one of the Chinese
situation.
restaurants go up there?
No, like on the
Did you say
next
Chinese
mission, they
restaurants?
said like, oh, we'll let you
Oh,
come
okay.
up on like
I thought
Mars mission,
I
Ares
thought one of
5
their
or something.
intentions
Yeah.
was they were gonna just send a Chinese astronaut up with the cargo and just have him sneak aboard or something.
That would have been a different book. I think that would have been neat.
No, they were saying like during the next mission or the one after. So, yeah, it might have been
okay.
Ares,
So they're just
Ares
reserving
5, like
their
you said,
place
Keith.
for it.
Actually, that would have been the
Yeah.
terrible like Hollywood thing, right? Would have been like and then it caused the danger because this guy went aboard and you know like all the fuel was off because there wasn't enough.
Yeah, the weight was off, causing calculation
Yeah.
differences.
He's trying to
yeah.
operate all the instruments with chopsticks.
On a brief backtrack, their first attempt to send cargo up, that failed terribly because all the food just became liquefied, shifting the weight, and
Oh yeah,
That was
causing
cool.
bolts
that was
bolts
great.
to get undone. I was actually really bummed out because I was thinking, man, that's it. They're either gonna have to go back and eat each other, or they're just gonna have to say
Eat each
that-
other.
They
Well,
mentioned that later
They
in
do
the book.
mention that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was their
That was a
backup plan, is
weird.
Who they're
Didn't
gonna
know
eat.
if they were kidding at first. You know, like didn't know if they were being serious.
Because they did joke about it.
I think they meant it.
I
think they had a
think
plan.
did.
What, you don't like? I thought you liked Mexican food.
Look, guys. So speaking of Mexican food, the in the appendices of the novel.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. Just keep talking.
Keep going.
There's a couple of things that I thought were really neat. One is about how he published the novel real quickly, because Kurt, I know you didn't have this as part of the audiobook.
Okay.
He published it a chapter at a time for free on his website.
Yeah, that was
and then
cool.
it gained a bunch of traction, and then people were like, hey, put it on Amazon. I want to get it on my Kindle. So he did, and he put it up for $1, which is the cheapest they would allow. And then it was a bestseller. So then, like, he negotiated a deal. Then he had all these emails and letters from scientists and astronauts, physicists and mathematicians, and all that stuff. And they were, like, mostly praising, but also found a few things he could revise. So he did. He revised any of the small inaccuracies they found, and
Nice.
that's the final version we have now.
Nice.
Which is
cool.
really neat. And then the other thing was how much preparation he did. I kind of likened him to Crichton, the other
Yep.
podcast. And in his interview at the end of the novel, in the appendices, he mentions that not only did he do his homework for this, he built an entire simulator. He coded an entire simulator to make all of the adjustments, all of the maneuvers, all of the routes that all the paths they take, they're all real.
Yeah.
And they could do every one of them.
That is
And he
crazy.
He ran every simulation. So
What do you know what he does? Like, what is his job? Did they mention that
I
in
don't-
appendix?
I bet you they did, but I don't
Appendix.
remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's definitely
I
not
had
by
no
trade,
idea that
right?
he even got home. I just knew he got on the ship, and then the book pretty much ended for me.
Yeah, that was great. Look, and I think it ended in the perfect spot. We didn't need to have like the journey home. We didn't have to have the hero's welcome. There's probably like another story there that he could have gone into as like what would have NASA really done, like coming back. Like people would have probably still gotten in trouble. I think they would have like kept it under their hats. They would have like things would have happened like later on. But like
after
once
the
the
dust
initial
settled.
yeah. But overall, yeah, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
I was thinking that maybe as a potential wrap up here, one of the things he had a revelation while he was writing. This is in his essay that he wrote at the end.
Yeah.
And I thought this was really cool. And he said, "Science creates plot." He's like, as I worked out the intricacies of each problem and solution, little details I wouldn't have otherwise noticed became critical problems that Mark had to solve. No need for meteor strikes. No surprises, catastrophes, narrow escapes, all that stuff came from the science.
Nice.
He never had to... He made a rule that he's like, everything has to be plausible. I'll never, have lightning hit him and then a tornado,
Right.
and then, I'll never do that. It's just going to be the science. And I think it really works.
Yeah.
I really liked that. It kept it very well grounded.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I think we should definitely wrap it up. I know it's been about 35 minutes.
Okay. So do an outro?
So yeah, Kurt, why don't you take us home?
This has been the IdiotCast, our final thoughts on The Martian by Andy Weir. Please visit dustyoldtomes.com and check us out on YouTube and Google+. See you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Hey, that actually was on the right time. All right.